Welcome to tonight's session for the ISPI of Hampton Roads chapter. My name is Scott Wearsing. I'm the president of the chapter, and I just wanted to get a few items in place, and then we'll hand it over to Max. Just some upcoming information coming up. Mark Bowers, who's been our producer host here, he's going to be sharing his practices from all sorts of things for key membership organizations. So leading smarter, not harder will be interesting. Looking forward to seeing people in person. We're going to be in Williamsburg, Virginia for the ISPI International Conference. I'll be there, Max, Lisa, Mark, a whole bunch of us. You can just still sign up for that. It's going to be at the Woodlands Conference Center, which is next to the Visitor Center in Williamsburg. May 18th, hey, if you want to present, let us know if this is you, because I don't have a speaker for May 18th. We won't have a session in April because of the conference, but if you have a topic, let me know. And then same thing for June. We have these two open dates, looking for presenters to present case study or best practices of what they've learned. Let's just we'll kind of go to the next kind of thing, kind of chance to introduce yourself, where you work, and if you have a reason why you're part of this community, kind of like why are you here tonight, kind of key thing. We're looking for some good marketing materials to kind of to share and to publicize our chapter when we're at ISPI in Williamsburg. And it's just kind of key. These are some of the notes that we just got from our board, but that's kind of the question. That's kind of the good thing to intro is your name, your job or role, and why you're here. We'll go down the list. We'll go with Lisa. We'll start with Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Tunigas, and I'm the owner and CEO of Innovative Learning Group here out of Michigan. And we do custom training and performance support. I'm a past president at the international level and a past treasurer of the organization. So number one, I love Scott and everything he says and how he does such a great job bringing in presenters like Max, who I've met a number of times at international conferences. And just like staying part of the community. And again, it's wonderful that this chapter keeps it going through thick and thin. So good for you guys.
Thanks, Lisa. Althea, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, this is Alethea Gardner. And I just happened to get an email one day describing this meeting. And so I thought that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll join. I'm not quite sure how I got on the email distro list, but that's okay. I actually am an adjunct professor at Strayer University. And so I thought maybe I could get some tips on how I could better design some interesting class discussions and explanations on concepts in my classes by listening to this presentation.
Great, thanks. Where's home for you?
I'm in Virginia.
Great, thanks. Michael, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Mike Valenti. I work for the Air Force Manpower Analysis Agency as the chief of the performance management branch. So one of the backgrounds that I have is I also used to teach for about 8 years doing technical training and did instructional system development. So partially why I like kind of coming to this community and stuff is because it's nice to see all the different perspectives from the different careers and meet up with some folks that we might be able to share some stories and kind of understand how things are going in both the public sector and then the military sector is what I mostly deal with. So it's always interesting to hear what all the great things that are going on in other places so that hopefully we can benchmark them and do things better.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot. Patty, why don't you introduce yourself?
Maybe she stepped away.
She's on mute. All right, we'll go to Vance. Vance, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sorry,
Good
Scott.
evening.
Can you
Okay.
guys hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I haven't really, to be honest with you, I haven't used Zoom too much. And so I'm struggling for whatever reason, I'm struggling with Zoom. But basically, I am a business change manager at Elevance Health. I'm still struggling to say our new name. I used to work with Scott in our training department. And yes, Scott is awesome. And I've learned so much from Scott. And I feel like I continue to learn so much from Scott in these trainings. And so, and of course, I learned from everyone else that's here as well. So thank you.
Thanks. Bern, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, Scott. Hey, Mark. Hey, everyone else. Thanks for having me. Bernd Hase here. I'm here in Hampton Roads, as I guess most of us are. I'm an independent coach and consultant, and I'm really looking forward here to tonight because this is quite timely because the organization I am associated with is seriously considering launching, well, first of all, developing and then launching a leadership development program. And I've personally spent the last 6 to 9 months researching, what is needed and how it works. So I'm really looking forward here to learn tonight a little bit more about what's it called, 5-star course design.
Great, thanks. Vance, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, good evening. My name is Vance Kinsey. I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt at Norfolk Naval Shipyard's Lean Six Sigma College. I used to study these principles in my grad programs many years ago, and instructional systems design and training are part of performance improvement no matter where you are. So it's always good to get a refresher, and I could use a refresher. Looking forward to it.
So why do you come to these sessions though? I thought you're an ASQ person, why, you just can't get enough information?
So I was a CPT person before I was an ASQ person.
Wow,
So yeah, I enjoy both.
great. The last person's the Zoom user. I don't know who that one is. You want to introduce yourself because you put in the generic Zoom user. If you want to introduce yourself, you can.
Hello. Hi, my name is Dr. Caroline Knight. I'm with the Department of Navy, OCHR, Human Resource Officer, and I do Human Resources Development. I'm not sure why my profile says Zoom user, but I have to go back and look at it and update my name. But I'm just looking to network and also find out a little bit more information about how other people design classes and courses. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Again, my name is Scott Weersing. I'm president of the chapter based in Virginia Beach. I work for Truist Bank, and I'm in the human capital analytics team trying to come up with ways to measure the corporate university. That's again, I'm part of ISPI because I like hearing the best practices and be able to share how people apply human performance technology in their different workplaces and work environments, and trying to find the commonalities to that. Mark, had your hand raised. You got a question or no?
Yeah, my question is, how come you never let me introduce myself?
Oh, well, there you go. I skipped Mark Bowers. All right, Mark, tell us who you are and why you're part of this group.
Well, I am indeed Mark Bowers. I think I've come up with a new term for myself, a service philanthropist, which means I just volunteer for a whole bunch of shit. So the stuff I volunteer for tends to be either it's always mission directed, so membership associations, and traditional nonprofits and stuff like that. I am I'm also the executive director of the Professional Development Consortium of Hampton Roads, who's paying for this Zoom call. So if you'd asked me 12, 13 years ago, I said I'd never heard of this joint or this community, but I was Googling I think that was the term then. I was Googling, what it is I thought I wanted to do for a living, or what it was people said I was good at, and up the Hampton Roads ISPI chapter. So I showed up, and I haven't gone home yet. So, and I've done I do a lot of volunteering at the global level, ISPI writ large. So, thanks, Scott. Thanks for calling on me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for all you do. And I'll hand it over to you, Max. You can introduce yourself, why you're part of this community, and then on to your presentation.
So Scott and I met a few years ago because we're fans of Merrill's First Principles of Instruction. And then we facilitated some presentations at ATD on asking the hard questions. And then the new title was Stop Taking Orders, Become a Performance Consultant, sort of thing. And then when at ISPI, we did one on the best performance model in the world, kind of a game show competition. So, with all due respect to training, which is my primary focus, performance improvement and leadership development and coaching are really where it's at. You can only do so much with training, but if you need to do training, you better use best practices. And so that's what we'll be talking about today. I'm actually in Eastern Utah, but we lived in Maryland for 6 years and worked in DC and Virginia area, with government contractors. And anyway, I always try to implement best practices, and you can't always do that. Sometimes the constraints won't let you implement best practices, but you always need to try to do the best you can and educate stakeholders, on, you want to take care of their wants, but you want to educate them about their needs. So anyway, I love ISPI because you have some of the top professionals in the world, performance improvement professionals in the world that you can talk with, you can network with, you can go to their presentations, you can discuss with them, and it's kind of a family. And each of the chapters are that way. The Hampton Roads chapter, very much so. I participate in the SoCal chapter, ISPA SoCal chapter, and the BABS Bay Area Boise State chapter. And I'm in the process of working to form an ISPI Wild West chapter for some of the mountain states, the western states. So because a lot of the chapters have kind of died, and so they need to be brought back because there's a lot of benefit to ISPI. Anyway, so all that being said, let me bring up my slides and share those. So let me share my screen. Go into projection mode. That works. So we're going to be talking about Merrill's First Principles of Instruction today. And I've taught most instructional design theories and learning theories and models. I've studied them, I've taught them. I got a PhD. I went back after working in business and industry for about 25 years. I went back and got a doctorate because I realized there was more to learn. There was more and better models. And unless you're using the best models, then you're in trouble. You need to be following best practices. And so I studied under Dr. Merrill a little bit at Brigham Young University when I was working on my master's, clear back in the late 70s, and then worked in business and industry for about 20 years, and then went back and got a doctorate at Utah State University, and Dr. Merrill was there. And so I studied under him again. And these are some of the organizations that I've worked for, trying to implement best practices. So, so Dr. Merrill, over the last 50 years, he's created various instructional design theories. And at one point, at one point, when he was working on his doctorate, he said somebody ought to write a book about different learning outcomes and how to teach those outcomes. And somebody says, oh, well, Robert Gagne wrote that book, and Merrill got a copy of that. And for a while, he taught, Gagne's learning outcomes and conditions of learning and events of instruction. And then later, Merrill started saying, hey, there's some more things that we could do with this. And so he'd say, well, what I did is I taught what Gagne said or what he should have said. And so in the mid 80s, Merrill separated performance from content. He says there are different types of performance, there are different types of content, and he came up and prescribed more precise instructional strategies. And that was back in the 80s. And so he's gone through different, component display theory, component design theory, instructional transaction theory, kind of more automated, and then first principles of instruction. And so part of the story, and anyway, so he was one of my doctoral advisors, all right? And we've co-facilitated some workshops with Joanne Bentley, another doctoral advisor, and Rio McBride on first principles of instruction. This is AACT, Association for Educational Communications and Technology. But going back to when I was working on, oh, wait a minute, I need to tell one more story. And so one of his students was named Charles Reigeluth, okay, Charlie Reigeluth. And Reigeluth wrote a series of books on different instructional design theories. And they're actually really good books. And in the mid 90s, many of the models and theories were constructivist. And apparently for about 10 years in the 90s, there was a Cold War between the cognitivists, Merrill, and the constructivists. And I missed out on this, but apparently it was palpable. But towards the end, they realized, oh, we're saying some of the same things. That's, a little bit different on who's doing what. Anyway, but Merrill at one point talked to Dr. Reigeluth, who'd been one of his doctoral students, says, Charlie, there's only one instructional model. There's only one instructional theory. And Dr. Reigeluth says, well, I don't agree with you, but why don't you write a paper about it? And that's kind of the way he talked anyway. So Merrill wrote First Principles of Instruction in 2002. And that's about when I started my doctorate at Utah State University. And so the more I got into his theory, I realized this theory includes all of the other theories, and it's simpler to apply and it's more powerful. And we'll talk about that. Anyway, but for my dissertation study, he created a 5-star rubric based on his first principles to evaluate instructional quality. And so for my dissertation study, we used his rubric and 3 other prominent course evaluation rubrics and evaluated 10 online courses. So Merrill served as the baseline evaluator for his rubric. And 6 of the 10 courses, he gave 0 points out of 100 points possible. So he was not very patient with survey courses. And no other rater gave that low of a rating on his evaluation form. But the point is, information is not instruction. And now 4 of those courses we had to exclude because they didn't have enough information online to validly evaluate them, which is another problem. But anyway, the point is there's some real serious problems with a lot of instruction. Anyway, so Merrill's recently published a second edition of his book, First Principles of Instruction, and he hasn't thrown out any of his earlier theories. He still has kind of the micro instructional strategies as well as the macro instructional strategies. But some of the problems that he's identified and I've identified is that most instruction is still information only and uses few research-based principles. The second problem is low-level objectives obscure real-world tasks. and Scott and I were just talking about this, identify, select, understand, know, whatever, acknowledge, appreciate. Anyway, so low-level objectives often obscure the real-world tasks. And then another problem is that the media and the technology have eclipsed the instructional strategy. And this has always been the case. I mean, ever since the invention of audio and motion pictures and video, graphics, I did a research literature review once on studies, instructional media studies over the years. Almost always there's no significant difference because, it's the strategy, instructional strategy, not the media, that makes the difference. Anyway, so Scott and I, this is a revised edition, but Scott and I have talked about some of the shiny objects that distract instructional designers and trainers and developers. So what I'd like you to do is open up your mics and or put into chat your favorite worst shiny objects. All right, so review these. We got philosophies, approaches, methods, platforms. What are your favorite worst shiny objects?
I gotta tell you, I know very little of any of these, but I did kind of throw up in my mouth a little bit when I saw engagement survey.
Oh yeah, they think that training can change engagement. Lisa and I both put gamification down as one of those fancy buzzwords that sounds that people are going to really like the learning if you use gamification. That's a big one. Discovery learning, social learning, mobile learning are ones that are
How about micro learning? Has anybody heard about micro learning? Lisa, if you like this course, you'll like this one too. So
we don't have we got to add that on there as curated content. That's another one to add on there. Look.
Oh yeah,
that's another method is curated conflicts or the Netflix of training, but I think we got to add, see, we have a new one to add to the list. Lisa, thanks. So a new method that's a buzzword.
Right. So, but the point is, none of these are inherently bad. Okay. Almost every one of these, if coupled with good instructional design, can be useful. But each of these by itself, it's like playing a piano with one key, it's talent management. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So how about knowledge management? Anyway, so all of these, there's some of these we're going to have to add. Anyway, but the point is, you need to have core instructional strategies, and then you can leverage some of these other approaches, philosophies, methods, platforms to, the capabilities now are just amazing for the technology, but you still need best practice instructional strategies. So Merrill, he used to talk about 5-star, and for about the last 15 years, he's talked about E cubed. Okay, and so he says instruction should be efficient, should be effective, and should be engaging. And then he says the way to achieve that is through certain strategies. So before we introduce his first principles, what factors, you can put in chat or you can go on mic, what factors do you believe are necessary to achieve efficient, effective, and engaging instruction, learning, and performance? What are the most important factors? Yeah, so go on mic or type in chat. Oh, there you go. Relevance to the learner. Needs assessment. Relevant. Yes. Got relevance twice. Relevance makes it engaging, doesn't it? Good point. Clear job outputs. Yeah, it should be aligned to the job performance, the outputs and the results, right? Exactly. Thank you, Lisa. Focused on a real world task. Yeah, so vetted learners, all right. Understanding where the learners are today, yes. Finding out where they're at. Output targets to a go, no-go level, okay. Excellent.
Yeah, I forgot about how important it is to have vetted learners, because if you have every type of level of previous experience in the training, it can only go
That
so fast.
makes it a lot harder than you have to take the more advanced to coach the others.
Yeah,
Bite-sized material, yes, break it down. Excellent. So I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's okay because we can all take our best practices and get better. So Merrill, what he did is he identified what he felt were the most important principles of instruction. And the real key to his model is in the middle, that it's task-centered. And a few of you mentioned that, real world tasks, real job outputs, meaningful real world tasks. That's the key to Merrill's model. None of the other models that I know of, well, maybe the constructivist models do, focus on real world tasks. But Merrill not only focuses on real world tasks, he says, number two, you need to activate, find out what the learners already know and what they can already do, activate their knowledge and experience and their skills. Number three, you need to provide instructor demonstration of these real world tasks. Four, you need to provide learner application, practice with these real world tasks. And then number five, integration, give them the opportunity to plan, and reflect on how they're going to perform those real world tasks. Now, someone on LinkedIn put that Merrill doesn't deal with evaluation and feedback. And in his secondary principles, he does. He doesn't, he includes everything that Gagne does and goes beyond. So what we're going to have you do today, you're going to have the opportunity to do a 5-star course design using this template. And we'll put the template in there in just a minute, all right? But this is a sample course I developed for the Veterans Administration, and it was for how to treat tinnitus patients. Tinnitus is a ringing or a noise in the ears that doesn't go away. And one of the biggest challenges among military veterans is this ringing in the air, and it's permanent. Okay. And so I actually curated some materials. We spoke a little bit about curation earlier, but created a course, a 5-star course on how to treat tinnitus patients. So the task, again, is to treat tinnitus patients. These are doctors and audiologists and psychologists that are, learning how to do this. And for the activation, we had a video of a tinnitus patient named Sam meeting with a primary care provider. Now, if I were to do it over again, I would add a pre-test, because these are smart. I mean, these are smart, educated doctors, audiologists, psychologists. So I would do a pre-test to find out what they already know, what they can already do in terms of tinnitus treatment. And then I'd maybe provide an introduction of the treatment phases. So then for demonstration, we'd walk them through the treatment, basically focusing on things maybe they're not familiar with as part of this treatment program. And then for application, we'd have this is an online course. So they'd have some sample patients that they'd, have to determine, how they would treat them at different phases of the treatment program. And finally, for integration, the doctors would have patients coming in that have tinnitus, and hopefully they'd be able to treat them effectively. So what you will be able to do is you'll be able to do a course design for a course of your choice. We'll give you this template and you'll be able to do that and share that. So, so this is you know, it's not rocket science. It's really quite simple, but it's very powerful. And the real power is that with task centeredness, you're doing everything with the real world task. You're activating what they can already do with that task. You're demonstrating with real world tasks and scenarios. You're having them practice with the real world task, and then hopefully they can plan and perform. So, but before we do that, what I'd like you to do is to do a course evaluation. And we'll give you the template for this too, but we'll just have you, you can just do this anywhere, score this. And so you're going to do a 5-star course evaluation. So pick a course of your choice, and you're going to ask yourself, okay, how task-centered is it? Does the course use real-world meaningful tasks for demonstration, application, testing, and integration with a progression of real-world tasks throughout the course? And it can score up to 30 points for task-centered, all right? For activation, learners recall previous knowledge of the task. They're given a preview of the completed task and a framework for mastering the task. You can get up to 10 points for that. Then for demonstration, all tasks are demonstrated effectively. For application, learners are given the opportunity to practice the whole task, then 25 points each for demonstration and application. And then for integration, learners are given the opportunity to plan implementation and implement the whole task in a real world setting. You can get up to 10 points for that. That could have a higher value, but often you don't have control over that. So that's only 10 points. So what I want you to do is I want you to quickly give a score for the course of your choice and put the total, the name of the course and the total points in the chat. We'll give you just a few minutes to do that.
And you can always just think about some compliance or e-learning course you had to do for work in the last month too.
Yeah, it could be a course, could be a course that you've taken.
Yeah, keep that chart up there for us so we can think of it.
Yeah, let me keep that up. Oh, wow. Caroline, time management course 90.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. All right.
I
Vance,
had a
62. Greenbelt. That's interesting. That's not bad, right? Scott, a fishing course 80. So that's pretty good.
we're at a bank and it's like it's an e-learning course and it had the items and stuff
It gives you scenarios that you have to
do.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure it got a whole task or demonstrated effectively. I mean,
Okay.
it's really hard to get a demonstration by reading a slide. So that
Yeah.
was pretty weak on that. We were given scenarios and identify those. That was pretty good.
Okay.
And then they actually send out phishing emails all the time.
To see if they catch you.
To see if you catch you. So there is an integration because I'm just like, I get all sorts of strange emails like, can you approve this thing? And I'm like, I'm in human capital
Okay.
analytics. I don't do funding of loans. You're really pushing it or something kind of thing. And, you know, all sorts of
Not very good
things.
fishing. Okay, Lisa,
know.
sales role play 70. That's good. My workshop for ISP Heptarones next month sounds 125.
What's wrong with that class, Michael? The survival of aid capture training. It sounds like a lot of knowledge, but not a whole lot of practice.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I'm supposed to travel overseas as a DoD civilian, so I had to take this in case I get captured. And it was all basically just walk through information. Okay.
Information.
Yep.
All right. So
4 hours.
How boring was it?
Really boring.
all right. So great course evaluations, and but some of these I want to know about the 125 here. My workshop for ISPI Hampton Roads next month. Mark, is that you, Mark?
Yeah, that was me.
All right. So
That's just a gut
You have to
play.
come next month to experience it.
And it's actually what I'll be. It's a version of what I'll be presenting at the chapter leaders workshop
okay.
for the conference. So I just want to set your expectations really, really high because I'll feel really, really comfortable with your comments after.
Yeah, we're going to give you extra credit. All right. So we'll be at the chapter leaders workshop to find out. All right. And your session next month. All right. So some excellent course evaluations here. Okay. We won't guarantee reliability, right? Of these measures, but the point is, this gives a pretty good idea of which courses are in good shape and some can be improved still, you know, and maybe we'll have to tone down marks a little bit. So, with that being said, you know, we need to have 5-star courses. All right. Now we can't, well, sometimes we have constraints. All right. And Merrill probably would not give 1 star to presentation only. Okay, I was generous and gave it 1 star. Okay, because the information sometimes is valuable. But if you add demonstration to explanation, you know, I think you get 2 stars. And so I based this steps model from Merrill's, one of his articles about levels of instructional design. Level 2, if you add application, you can get 3 stars. All right, you're going to be more effective. If it's task-centered, it might even be a bigger jump, 4 stars. And then if you have activation and integrating, I think, you know, probably 5 stars. And so sometimes you can't do all of these. Sometimes I interviewed once for a job and they asked me, what if the objective is recall? And I said, I always go to the highest level of application because they're not going to remember if they don't, you know, if they don't apply it. So I didn't get the job, but they didn't like my answer. But, you know, if you don't apply it, how are you going to remember it? And so the point is you want to go up as far up the steps as you can, you know, within your constraints. And if they won't let you, sometimes, you know, I did one course at Morgan Stanley and it was all information, no examples, no practice. I said, can't we improve this? They said, no, we've got to get it out. You know, and you know, in the banking and finance industry, it's a compliance, you know, it's a compliance issue and you have to get the information out. But anyway, but I got to do some other programs that were more 5-star. So again, the point is, if you can design good instruction at this level, you're 50% there. Okay, you do a good design at this level, you're 50% there, and then, you know, there's more things that you have to do, task analysis and scenarios, progression of problems. We'll talk briefly about those today, but mostly we'll focus on this one because this is the big one. These are the first principles. So your assignment now, I don't think you have the template in the chat, so I'm going to put it back in there. Hang on just a second. see if I can find it. All right. So I'm going to put the template in the chat. I'm also going to put the evaluation form in the chat so you'll have it. But it's the first principles template that you'll want to download. And then your assignment right now. Oh, wait a minute. We were going to do one other thing. Excuse me. So before you do that, we're going to do some practice. All right. I got ahead of myself. All right. You probably
You're not
could have
following your
gone.
own orders. You got to follow the own orders.
Well,
are you gonna do one for us on wealth management? Yeah, you got to demo
so
this.
we're
You
going
got
to
to
do it
demo the
together.
worksheet first. Yeah,
So
good
we're
idea.
going to do it together. All right. And so it could be I do, we're going to do a we do. Okay. And so, but I could have gone straight to you do, right? So for the task, so I developed a certification testing program for Morgan Stanley for wealth management advisors that were in training. They called them Wealth Management Advisor Associates. So they were in training to become wealth management advisors, which meant they could work with clients and assist financial advisors who know even more, about investments and money management. But they would be able to assist financial advisors with the wealth management portion of financial advisement. And so what we're going to do is we are going to design a program for them. You're going to help me design a program for them, all right? And so these are smart people, but they're learning how to help wealthy people manage their finances, all right? So the first thing we identify is what is the real world task, all right? So what would be the real world task as we're trying to train these wealth management advisor associates? You go ahead and open up your mic. Yeah.
One task could be to develop a relationship.
Okay, so that's gonna be a part of it, but what's the whole task? What's the whole task?
Manage funds.
Yeah,
Manage.
exactly. So, and I'm gonna put help manage wealth, okay? But basically it's funds, all right? So that's the whole task. All right. So excellent job, Scott. So what would we do for activation to find out what they already know, what they can already do?
Give them a scenario.
Okay, so we'll call it a scenario pretest sort of thing, right? Exactly. So what else could we do? So maybe after the scenario, then provide a maybe feedback, right? Or we could provide a good demonstration or something, okay?
Or even just share their experience in managing
another
their own
thing,
wealth.
Yeah,
Just like we did today. It's like sharing your
Yeah.
previous experience. People love to
Right.
share with
so
their previous experience with wealth, whatever the topic or task is.
yeah, so any combination of these, right? And we have to decide, okay, what's going to work best. Okay, that's excellent. So what are we going to do for instructor demonstration?
Maybe teach them how to evaluate their
Okay,
their wealth.
okay. So all right.
It's kind of a long process, so
Yeah. So, but
it's almost like you could show little video clips kind of
yeah,
speeding
through
up
the process. So
the
let's
meeting.
take what you said, Michael, how to analyze financial situation. and recommend options, maybe something like that. Okay. But basically that's what it is, right? You analyze, find out, what their situation, analyze it and give you recommendations, and let's go beyond that.
How about, excuse me, how about providing proof that they know what they're talking about?
Okay, excellent. Provide real examples, sort of thing. Excellent, excellent. and credentials, maybe, right? To say, yeah, we've done this before, we know what we're doing, we worked with similar clients, whatever. Okay. Okay, what about a learner application? What would you do for learner application?
Provide a scenario.
Exactly. Okay. So provide practice scenarios. Okay. And have
I would call that an investment strategy.
Okay.
Provide investment strategy. This would be
I'm going to put wealth management and investment. Okay. Practice scenarios, because anyway, so later we'll do the task analysis. All right. And like Lisa was saying, there's a lot of steps, and Baron and Michael, you're mentioning, and Scott, you mentioned there are different steps. Okay. And it becomes much more complex, but at this point we're saying, okay, at the general level, this is kind of, the basic design, high level design, right? All right. Now, what would we do for integration? So integration is where they do it in the real world, right? So
yeah,
what
they
would we
meet with a potential client or meet with an existing client, and you'd have an experienced wealth manager shadow them to give them feedback.
Yeah. With actual
shadowing
clients, with
that'd be the shadowing thing.
Yeah, with experienced advisor, whatever, right?
As of course, this isn't scalable. If you got 50 new wealth managers, you don't have 50 one-on-one stuff. So we all know that the one-on-one training is the best, but it's not scalable sometimes.
Well, and actually the plan was that they would partner with a financial advisor that knew investments, knew everything. Wealth management is just part of, financial management. It may not be investments. It may be, where to put your assets, or, what cash assets, what you're going to do for retirement. Anyway, so we just you just helped design a course. All right. I call this rapid design. So this is really solid design for a course. All right. So now your assignment. Now I've done this before. I have my other models, but they're all pretty much the same. Okay. They're pretty much the same. All right. The different groups have done this design, but the designs are pretty much the same. Okay. Now the assignment is for you to design your own course. All right. So pick a course you'd like to design or redesign. Could be one that you're working on.
Or it can just be a task too. So something that you need to
Could be a task.
You need to teach somebody at your workplace something.
Yeah, could be whatever. And then go ahead and download the template, the first principles template, and fill it out. And then I will give you we have until when, Scott?
We have till 8:15, but we'll probably put a timer on for like 5 minutes and see how people.
Yeah, let's go for about 5 minutes, maybe 7, and do a rapid course design. And so in the middle, put your task, put your activation, instructor demonstration.
So when you click on the template, if you just click on that in any of those boxes, there are text box already, and you can just add your task.
Yeah,
underneath it.
right. You just click into the text box and you can add your text. You can resize the boxes if you need to. And then we'll let each of you share your designs.
If you thought this session was all about just listening to Max, you're wrong. You know, you have to think and do something.
So we're trying to follow first principles. Oh, Mark has given us some thinking music. There you go. Okay, looks like some of you are ready. Baron, tell us about your design. You populated it on Zoom here. Yeah, we're not hearing your audio.
So what you're saying, I essentially shared this with everyone here, right?
Yeah,
Okay, that's cool.
good.
That's cool. Appreciate it.
That's good.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how this whole annotation thing works. I guess I know now. All right. Anyway, so task is a course, if you like, to train on time and priority management, on the competency of time and priority management. So the activation essentially is for the learner to understand that he or she is unable to focus on what is really important, simply by having the squirrel syndrome, if you like, having too many distractions. You called it earlier on shiny objects. We all have that tendency to a degree. A demonstration would be, which I kind of interpret as defining a goal, would be, if you master this one, you can safely work within a 40-hour work week framework. You're going to be able to do that. On the application side, is create a priority list and really understand and avoid your distractions. So there's a lot of self-awareness involved in this. And then the integration would be, and for those who know me, know that I'm also a business coach, really is the integration. This is where I come in as a coach, not only as an instructor, but also as a coach, and saying, holding that person accountable on the commitments. That's what we do as coaches. We're asking for commitments. So out of this whole training the result would be a commitment, and based on that, coaching that person to succeed on this particular competency.
Excellent. I like the coaching piece because it's so hard to manage your own performance.
Yep.
But no, this is excellent. Who'd like to? Excellent, Baron. I looked on here and I thought, hey, he's he's populating, but actually it's on Zoom. So who'd like to share next?
I got one. I'll go next. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I kept it really down to a simple task.
Okay.
Just create a chart in Excel. There's the real world task. Activation, ask learners name charts that they've seen before. That's kind of obviously, and then obviously ask learners if they've used Excel before. I'm not sure you'd actually even have to know Excel to do a chart. We'll see, but that's just kind of activation on that. See if they
Find
can
out
name
what
the kind
they
of
can
charts
already
and
do,
stuff like that.
Okay.
We're not going to do a whole information about every chart in Excel. That's not the goal. That's just not, that's, but that's how the learning could be.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to demo. We're just going to go into Excel, how you select the data in the rows and columns, and then pick a chart. So just a demo. It's like, oh, okay, there's this, the steps. The early application is now we provide them a set of data. All right, just like you gave us a slide, I'd give them a set of data and ask them to create 2 different charts. So it's like, and then then they can figure out which chart tells the story better. And then obviously integration is, all right, now go to your computer, select a set of, find a spreadsheet or some Excel and select a chart on that. So that'd be the integration where they kind of, again, taking it back to their workplace and creating a chart with their data rather than, fictitious data that'd be in the demo. So just a real simple, create it, practice.
Simple but powerful, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, who'd like to share their design next?
This is Mike, but I didn't actually draw it out, but I wrote it down on paper. So
Okay, that's fine.
Just
tell us. Yeah, just tell us.
Yeah, so I'm actually going through something right now, working with some of our lower level management analysts types of folks. So this will help me visualize this from a bigger perspective, and it's going to be a drill down approach because I only have the biggest concept drawn out. But so the first thing, overall task would be to develop their management engineering capabilities for variance determinations for what we do. And the second side of it, it would be ask about their previous learner's experience about the topics that we'll be covering, So then that way we can get an understanding of how much they actually know about the topic, using overhead type of questioning techniques, and maybe develop a pretest. I don't know exactly if we would do that yet, but yeah, so we would then slide over to explaining a real world application, because we do studies up at our level, and we usually ask them to participate so we can give them a little bit of real world live data from actual studies that we've done. And then we would demonstrate the understanding of the concepts, walk them through, give them the basic knowledge course first, and then reinforce it with the experiential type of walkthroughs, and then how you actually apply the principles and the concepts of what you're trying to do by categorizing and developing the models for the manpower requirements. And then the last thing would be integrating it with a local unit kind of concept, doing some hands-on training and using referential data and real world scenarios of what we've been doing with their bases.
Excellent.
This is a good
Excellent.
tool. I didn't think about how simple this is to actually demonstrate it and show it.
It's simple but powerful, and
Yeah.
the power is the real world task.
Mhm.
Excellent. Okay, who'd like to go next?
I have one, same thing. I'll just talk through it.
Okay.
I said the task was, so it's a sales scenario. So how to qualify a sales opportunity. So like you get an RFP or a request for proposal in, and how do you decide if you're gonna bid on it or not? So I thought the activation could just be the new salesperson and the sales manager kind of walking through an RFP together, and the new sales manager kind of adding color commentary after each point to kind of just walk through it, but not real, systematically, and just have them give them their thoughts. And then the demonstration could be actually to have kind of the qualification checklist or rubric, and go through a scenario, go through an actual RFP. And then the application would be very similar, but the learner's doing it on their own with just a different RFP. And then the integration would be, the next real RFP that comes in, this new salesperson tackles it on their own with, the sales manager kind of lurking.
Excellent. So really they're making a decision if they're going to respond, right?
Yeah, spend resources, time and money.
Spend resources to create a proposal.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent, Lisa. Oh my goodness. So who else would like to share?
This is Vance. I don't have all levels, but I did want to talk about an aha moment that I gained while thinking through this. I downgraded one of my courses due to the
Okay, we
word
can't,
hole.
Vance, we can't hear you very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I downgraded the course that I initially evaluated because of the use of the word whole in 3 of the statements: demonstration, application, and integration. And my understanding of the word whole was different than what you described. So as I come to understand, when you're talking about a whole task, it could be a part of the task that you're describing as the whole part of that part of the task. So you can do the part task training, but it's got to be the whole part of that piece part. I guess is what I'm saying. And
yeah,
and then recognizing that scenarios, simulations, and stories or thought problems sufficed as a demonstration and as a real world setting were actually informative for me. So I appreciate that.
yes. And yeah, tasks, problems, scenarios, real world, those become your framework, or your goal for your achievement. Okay, other comments or ones that would like to share? Don't be shy. All right, so let me show you a couple other things, then we'll do kind of question and answer, all right? And feel free to ask questions at any point. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my slide, share my screen. And you'll notice again that the key is the real world task, but providing activation, demonstration, application, and integration is very important. Now, have in mind, I can get this to work. So I teach a whole instructional design certification program, but have in mind that once you do 5-star course design, the next thing you have to do is, if you don't break down this task, you're going to be in trouble. All right. And one way to do that is with hierarchical task analysis. All right. And so I say, stop writing objectives, do task analysis. Okay. And what the task analysis will do is it will help you identify all of the subtasks, all of the enabling tasks. And those enabling tasks become your performance outcomes. All right. So more often than not, performance objectives are convoluted. And I've taught how to write good performance objectives. Okay. But more often than not, they obscure the real task. So by doing task analysis, then you're going to be in better shape. However, Vance, you mentioned scenarios. More often than not, you're going to have variations of your tasks. Not all tinnitus patients are the same, all right? Some of them have severe tinnitus, some have minor tinnitus, some have severe hearing loss, some have minor hearing loss. And so you may have different scenarios of your tasks. Merrill calls these a progression of problems. And so you may have a basic scenario, but then you may have some other scenarios that are more advanced. And you may need to take your learners through various scenarios. Then when you do your module and scenario design, you'll be listing the tasks on the left, and then you'll be providing more detail about what you're going to do for demonstration and instructor demonstration, learner application. All right. Now, if you want to get really advanced, Merrill in his latest book has guidelines for teaching concepts, procedures, processes, and problem solving. All right. And so if you want to get more advanced and more precise in your instruction, you'll be tracking the learner or the performer and seeing how well they do. I mean, you assume if we do demonstration practice, they're going to be doing great, right? Well, they may not be. You may have a tinnitus patient, poor Sam, he goes through all this treatment and he still is suffering. He still can't sleep, and so you're going to be tracking the learner's performance and then adjusting your feedback and instruction. Then ultimately, you're going to draft your instruction, okay? But everything should be aligned. Everything should be aligned to teaching all of the subtasks that the learner, that whatever your learners can't do yet, you need to address all of those. And so the point is, you need to achieve performance. Now, all that being said, So here's the task analysis. Here's a little bit of the progression of problems. So basically, the progression of problems, this is a modification of Merrill's, but if you look down here at the bottom, you have all these component skills from your task analysis. And the blue represents providing demonstration for these component skills. You talked about that a little bit, Vance. And then you provide brown as the practice or the application. And then you have the next scenario, and you may need to provide demonstration for a couple of the component skills and application. You may have another scenario. You may need to provide demonstration for some component skills and application until they can, master it and deal with any scenario on their own. And then here's a template for designing here are the different scenarios for tinnitus. So you've got the SAM scenario, which is the basic scenario. We have the 5 levels of progressive tinnitus management. And for the SAM scenario, we're going to provide demonstration and application. So we're going to show them, okay, here you are, primary care provider. Here's what he's done, online, video, whatever. Okay, what are you going to do if you're the primary care provider? And so that becomes the application for these different phases. Then we're saying, well, Sam didn't do very well, so let's try again. All right. And then we go completely to application and saying, okay, Sam didn't do very well the first time. What are you going to do as the primary care provider? What are you going to do as the audiologist? What are you going to do as the group therapist? And it's all application. See if they, do a better job. And then they have another scenario with Lori, who has minor tinnitus. And maybe she only needs help from the primary care provider and the audiologist. But again, it's all applications. So the learner has to enter in this is what I do. And then they get feedback compared with expert results. And then we have Deborah, who has severe tinnitus. And then this is all application, and she may need to go through the whole process. So these scenarios are everything. They better be the most important scenarios. They better be the most important situations, the most important problems, the most important tasks, representative of what you want them to be able to do. And then, so have in mind, okay, so this is my performance improvement model, all right? So have in mind that, so I give Scott a bad time, because Carl Binder's model and Gilbert, and I keep saying, let's think outside the boxes. But anyway, so have in mind that instruction is focusing on competence only, all right? Training assumes they don't have the knowledge and the skills. And so part of factor 3, competence, is what we're focusing on. But have in mind, there are many other factors that influence performance. I think, Lisa, you mentioned this. And I've added commitment. None of the other models really focus on commitment. Well, Will Thalheimer actually is focusing on proactivity. But the other models are very light on commitment. And I think commitment's the most important individual characteristic, along with character. Integrity is so important for performance. Having each other's backs, being trustworthy, being trusted, doing what you'll say you'll do, etc. Having courage and empathy, etc. So character is very important. Most of the models focus on factors 3 through 7: competence, resources, business outcomes, evaluation of performance, and incentives, feedback, and consequences, which are all important. But most models do not include the importance of leadership, which is absolutely critical. Teamwork, we do everything in teams, right? And then some deal with culture and attitude, but I think culture and attitude are a result of all of these other factors. And then in the middle, you know, fortunately, Gary Rumler figured out that processes are really critical. Okay. And so you better have good processes and good systems, or else they sabotage all the other factors. If you have a bad process, you know, against a good individual, but it's a bad process, you know, there are a lot of quotes. The process or the system always wins, right? And so initially, probably processes and systems should be number one. Focus on those first, find out what, you know, how those impede performance. And so eventually you need to be good at all of these, not just your training, but your training better be good too. Right? Better be 5-star training. Anyway,
but are you saying you could design a 5-star course and it gets a 80 on the rubric, but it doesn't actually improve performance because
correct.
something's missing here?
Yeah. So you could achieve the competence, but, you know, without the resources, without the leadership and the teamwork, you know, without the culture, you know, if you're in a cynical culture, you can train until the cows come home, right?
But you could take 5-star and start thinking about these. Activation is about commitment.
Yeah.
How committed are they to this idea?
Yeah. And
processes and systems are a demo. If they can't demo it, then there isn't a process or a system in place. Evaluation is the application and feedback. If they don't know what good looks like and they can't determine if they did it right or wrong, there's no rubric. You know, imagine if we had to train somebody like Lisa's example about sales training, but we don't have a rubric. You just have to evaluate the RFP on whatever you think's important. You know, nobody's going to be very strong on that. So you could actually take these items and start applying those. Integration is always the big question I always ask in the training is how often do they do this task in the real world? Never. Well, then why are we training it? Well, because everybody has to know this. And I'm like, no, they don't. They just need to we need to train them on how to find the job aid. So when this scenario comes up, they can find the job aid kind of thing. So that's that's in your task analysis is how frequent is this task? Because, you know, we can train people on it, but it's kind of like Michael's example about traveling overseas. How often do you travel overseas? Never. Okay, but we need to train everybody just in case they do have to go overseas. You're like, you know, ideally they probably need the training a month before they go overseas so it's fresh in their minds. But no, everybody has to do it every year whether they go or not. So another question I had for you, oftentimes we get confused with the difference between a real world task and a goal. So oftentimes people ask, you know, what should the training about? Oh, we need to develop their competency as a banker, leader, engineer, blank of role. And I wanted to know, is that a real world task, developing a competency, or is that just a goal?
Well, I think you need to do a task analysis and say, okay, well, you know, what do they need to be able to do? And I think that's the challenge. And you have a good point about, you know, when you do risk analysis or needs analysis, you have to look at it and say, okay, what's the frequency? What's the importance? And what's the risk if you don't do it? Okay, like Michael, you know, he's got training on self-reliance or whatever, you know. Yeah, if he gets in a situation where he has to survive, but what's the likelihood? You know, but I think yeah, you've got to identify, well, what are the real world tasks that they have to be able to do, you know, to be a competent financial manager, whatever.
I'd like to make a comment. I kind of like this model. Initially, when you asked what was the most important factor critical to training success, I answered vetted learners or something like that. And what I was getting to was the portion of the behavioral engineering model that are brought to bear by the individual themselves. And that seems to be represented by number 1 and number 2.
Yeah.
And the courses that we have a robust vetting process for, where we make sure that the person comes to the course that is committed, that they have the character, the stick-to-itiveness, the other factors that will ensure or likely ensure that they complete. The success of their participation in the course exponentially increases.
Exactly. And that individual commitment, I mean, ultimately the learner is going to benefit, right? As well as their employer, but the learner is going to benefit from the learner, right? From the learning. So they should take accountability for their learning, for their performance. Good,
Hey,
good
cool.
point.
Do we still talk in terms of job duties and tasks? Is that still part of our lexicon when we break down job task analysis? Do we still talk in terms of jobs, duties, and tasks?
Well, I think we ought to, and I think the job task analysis should be representative of the, some of them are not really representative of, of what they have to do. I read job descriptions and I think, oh my goodness, what do they really do and so have to do? So they ought to, I think, I think we ought to use a job task analysis for job descriptions.
One final comment, the term competence, we had in our organization a huge initiative to diagram competence, and we had to come up with a definition of competence. And one of the things we tossed about, and I think we kind of landed on a variation of it, was KSAs and Bs, knowledge, skills, abilities or attitudes, and then behaviors associated with that job, duty, or task. And that was really the turning point to getting a good competency model for our organization, was figuring out how to define it.
Well, and you need to go ahead.
No, I was done.
So you need to marry those with results and accomplishments. And the problem with competencies is if they don't lead to accomplishments, then I don't know, they're kind of weak competencies.
You're absolutely right. So we actually paired the results factor with a proficiency factor.
Yeah.
Which we found helpful.
So what you're doing is one of the most difficult projects that can be done, okay, to identify what great performance looks like. It is really hard, but the key is those competencies, those skills and competencies need to lead to results and accomplishments. And the behaviors, whatever, need to lead to accomplishments, to business outcomes, whatever.
Yeah, this is very cool. Scott, is this going to be available later on?
Yeah, we'll send out the slides and the recording to everybody.
Yeah, you'll have the slides.
Thank you very much. This was worth the show. This was worth the price of the show.
We're surprised.
This was the extra bonus thing. We weren't going to talk about performance models, but we're performance consultants and you always got to share about those ones.
So
any other questions from the audience about this model or the 5-star model? Or do you have any other slides, Max? I don't think so.
This is basically it.
Yeah. You want to go back to the 5-star model to see if there's any questions on that one?
Yeah. So Scott and I have given presentations on the best performance models, and there's some amazing models. I mean, you've got Gilbert, you've got Binder's version of Gilbert, you've got Rumler, you've got Addison, and many other models. But the thing is, unless you identify and address all critical factors for performance, you may not get it. Okay, you may not get it. And so it's really important. I mean, I didn't even talk about context. All right. Looking at the context, of the outward, outward and, outward to your environment and inward from the environment. I mean, context is critical. So be sure you address all the important factors. Yeah, let me go back to the other model. But so Scott and I have given presentations on, on the performance models. So
what do you think's the hardest when you've worked with people to help develop training on this model? Which of these 5 things is the hardest for people to identify?
well, I think the biggest challenge is people are still in the information and topic mode. And they think, oh, we need training on these topics. We need people to understand. And even if they identify the real world tasks, even if they can identify the real world tasks, they think, okay, we're going to teach all the topics that are going to help them with these tasks. And they don't want to do demonstration. They don't want to do, application practice with the tasks. And so the challenge is to educate people, saying, well, if you want them to be able to perform these tasks in the real world, we need to show them how to do it in the real world and let them practice, as close as possible to the real world.
So I would agree with that definitely, because we have a technical training school that pretty much concentrates only on just bringing that top level knowledge, to just give you, hey, we're just going to give you this little taste of it, but we're not going to go through the whole thing. So our training guidance for those folks is just so top level that, there's multiple ways to do different types of scenarios, right? So you're always thinking on the fly because one thing's going to adjust into something else. And we just never get there. So folks don't get to the go, no go level on applying, even just developing process flow diagrams at the school. So it's always hard to bring them back out into the real world and be like, hey, let's go look at one of your organizations and let's go build a process flow diagram for them based off of their job task type of relationship. And that's kind of what we're supposed to do from a manpower perspective, is we help them build those PDs. And so if folks don't understand that, it makes it very hard to climb up that ladder to get there.
And then another thing that I've often seen is, oh, it's a real world task, but we can't demo it because nobody's doing it right now. Which, I'm like, somebody's got to be the first to do it. That's just it.
It's real world, doesn't sound
it's
like
real world. It's like, oh, but it's something new we want everybody to be able to do. I'm like, well, we need somebody to do it the first time. So somebody's got to jump off the cliff or jump into the pool and swim across so everybody can figure out how to do it. So that's always the key. That's sometimes I often see. It's like, well, here's all the steps and stuff, it's like back to our example of asking the hard questions, and the stakeholder wants everybody to understand all the new policies and procedures. That's not a real world task. That's just understanding a bunch of new changes. We need somebody to actually apply those to a real scenario.
Yeah.
So those are the key things. And then oftentimes I often see, as you mentioned it, there's a task, but the activation is giving you all the information in the history of this task, which isn't the same thing as activation.
So couple of points. Michael, you talked about process mapping, and that is so important, for mapping out processes and systems. A lot of people just don't do it. But if you have, you've got to map out your processes. If if you have processes and systems, if you don't map those out and find out, okay, what's, where's the waste, and let's clean this up, and let's eliminate delays and, and costs, etc. And then the other point I was going to make, I just forgot. So He'll probably come back to me. Oh, I remember. So I was doing a video podcast with Clint Clarkson. He's a training guru. And towards the end, you know, we were talking about first principles. At the end, he says, "Oh, you just can't do this with compliance training." And I thought, and I really didn't get to, you know, reply. You know, it was the end of the podcast. And I'm thinking, compliance training would be one of the best situations. Because then what you do, you could have scenarios where, you know, you've put the company at risk, you know, because of lack of compliance, and saying, okay, here's the scenario, what would you do? And so, you know, just about any training, you can turn it into, you know, real world scenarios. You know, it's the same thing with cybersecurity training or whatever, you know.
Well, and most companies have a whole list of things that have really happened.
Yes. Saying, okay, Dr. Diaz.
We were asked to do a respect in the workplace class, you know, and we asked, all right, what's driving this? Is this preventative medicine, or have some things already happened?
Yes. So go ahead.
I have a question. So in particular, this model, I can see this being you know, the basis of instructor-led training. How would this apply, or what sort of changes would be in this model, if any, if we're talking about e-learning?
So the e-learning assumption is you can't do this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can't do it in e-learning. Well, I just did it in e-learning. Okay. And so I had text entry boxes, okay, fields. And so it wasn't multiple choice. It was, okay, doctor, what are you going to prescribe? And it was text entry. And so they had to type in, well, this is what I do, and then click submit, and then they could compare their answer with the expert response. And so the point is, can you do everything online? No. So you have to determine, well, what can you do? What do you have to do offline? Can you do role plays online? Sometimes, you know, if it's synchronous, you know, if you have like breakout groups or whatever. And so basically you have to be thinking, okay, how are we going to have them do application online? How are we going to have them do application offline? You know, can you teach them how to do coaching and an e-learning? Well, maybe, you know, you have to think about it and saying, okay, here's a scenario, you know, text what, you know, type in text on what you do or how you respond to this person, or you can do multiple choice. We did, Scott and I did a kind of a multiple choice scenario for asking the hard questions. And so, so ultimately the question is, okay, how am I going to provide the demonstration? It's okay to demonstrate online. Practice is a lot harder.
Yeah.
And so you have to say, okay, well, how can I have them practice online? How can I have them practice offline?
And I think we were earlier just evaluating courses, and they were almost the courses we thought about were like ones we completed online. And again, a lot of online courses score poorly on this because they don't have a real world task, and it's all activation. So it's like, well, that's all it is a bunch of information. It's like your lecture only course.
Yeah, we want 5 true false questions at the end. You know, that's my favorite.
Oh yeah. Those kind of items. Any more questions for Max? All right. You can reach out to Max. Where's your contact information? Do you have a slide for that?
Yeah, let me jump to that.
I'm gonna put that on the recording. People get all within the recording like, how do I contact Max? I want to know more about this. There it is. And
actually, this has changed. Oh, I didn't want to do that.
Max at 5-star performance. And then Max does do is it a 10-week course online about this certification? So if you reach out to him, you can get even further practice and feedback and if you want to apply this methodology to things. Again, this was just again of a taste of how you could again evaluate courses that you're taking to see if they're good, and also to again, if you have to design or train a course for somebody in your workplace, it's a great tool. Again, thanks for everyone who attended, and thanks for sharing your session. There's the Mark put the sign up for the one on the 16th. Hopefully, again, you can see for that one. And again, thanks for attending this session.
Thank you, Max.
Hey, thank you, everyone.
Nice to see you
Thank
all. Good
you.
night.
Good to see you.
Good night.
Good night.
Well,
Take care. Hey, thanks, Max. This was really good. It's going to probably help me out here in my
All right.
next little
Yeah.
task that I got to do.
Yeah, let me know if I can help.
All right, I appreciate it.
Okay, so we'll see you.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Appreciate the
Thanks.
session. Are you presenting at the ISPI conference in April?
Yes, I am.
Excellent, excellent. Looking forward
All
to
right.
meeting you there.
All right. Be good to see you, Vance. All right. Thanks, Mike.